picked up a Satoh Stallion Sunday a couple days ago. Found it on Facebook Marketplace. Now, a Satoh Stallion is not a very desirable tractor. It's not something like super rare that people really go out of their way for. It's not a collector's item, nothing like that. It's made by Mitsubishi, which you can't really see the decal anymore, but it says Mitsubishi. Satoh Stallion S750D is what it was. When Satoh was phased out and phased into Mitsubishi, it became a Mitsubishi S750D. But anyway, I always wanted a Satoh Stallion, and I had never found one. The reason I wanted one, like I said, not rare, not crazy desirable or anything, but because it's a really good sized tractor, has an Isuzu 3-cylinder diesel engine in it. It's a 3AB1, I believe is what it is. But Isuzu makes great engines. And Satoh, I've been pretty happy with their quality. There are some issues with them, but nothing major. I have several Satoh tractors, but the biggest reason is my first actual tractor was a Satoh Elk S750D. 4-cylinder Mazda gas engine, but it had rear PTO, 3-point hitch, all that. It was the first actual tractor I ever owned. So when I was younger, looking into things like this, I saw that the Stallions were the biggest thing that Satoh sold, and I always really wanted one. And I think it'll be a great brush hogging tractor for some of the fields around my house. It's 38 horsepower, about, I think they said 34 PTO-ish, so you can run a 6-foot brush hog off of it. I typically run a 5-foot off my Yamaha 336D. Nothing wrong with that, but gives you a little more power. It's a good field tractor. So anyway, there's a couple issues with it. I paid $675 for it. It does have its issues. It's sat in a barn for years, hasn't run in about 5 years. I already have had the head off of it once because I'm impatient. I have some pictures and a couple videos from it that I'll be posting, but you won't see that in this video, unfortunately. So a couple cool things here. It's got the factory weight rack and some other odds and ends that are pretty cool, but that's always nice to have, a little of that front end weight. Another very interesting thing is I got the original manual for it. And what's so important about that is I got a lot of technical data in it. It has everything from head bolt torque to valve clearances, all that in this very tiny booklet. But the coolest thing about it is, and I didn't know this when I bought it, I didn't actually realize it till a day later. The actual booklet has stamped on it, Scudder Tractor Co., Pennington, New Jersey. Pennington, New Jersey is where I live. Scudder Tractor Co. is a company, a very old company that was there for years. They actually restored the building. It's a Pilates studio or something now. But they kept the original look of the building because it was so historic. But I thought that was interesting because I picked this tractor up over an hour and a half away, and it was actually from my hometown. So with that being said, a couple issues here. I noticed that when I picked it up, there was no air filter with it. The air filter, the actual canister, the housing, which I'll show you. So ordinarily, now I do have the intake manifold off, and I'll explain why in a moment, but the intake manifold bolts here, and then this tube comes up on top of it like that and goes up here, or I believe this way, yeah. So it goes like that. Now where this tube is supposed to go to is right up front here. There's supposed to be a canister. It goes this way. And that would have your air filter inside of it. So I thought it was a little weird that the guy didn't have it, but it hasn't run 5 years. Who knows? Maybe there was a mouse nest in it. Who knows? So as I dug into it more and more, I realized that there was a lot of debris inside the intake manifold from mice and several other things. I thought it was just mice at first for the most part. And when the engine would turn, it would stop. So it was like it was hitting something almost. So I didn't want to push it too much, but it would roll back the other way until the last cylinder here came up on compression. At least that's what it seemed like. And it would stop. So I ended up pulling the head off and found a lot of stuff in the cylinders. mainly for mice, things like that. I think what happened was somebody had at some point tried to start it with a mouse nest in the intake and it pulled it into the cylinder. Luckily, there's no damage. Cylinder walls look good. Everything looks good. Nobody tried to forcefully start it or turn it over, so it didn't do any damage. Everything looks pretty good. However, I noticed something very concerning, and actually what I did was I took the head off, I cleaned the cylinders out, checked the spray pattern of the injectors. They look great. I lubed everything back up because it was sitting for a while. I coated the cylinder walls, put it all back together, went to crank it over, and it was actually even on the compression stroke, it was blowing out the exhaust and the intake on all 3 cylinders. So, okay, that's kind of weird. So I readjusted the valves, set all the clearances, still doing it. Then I realized inside the actual intake manifold, if you look here, there is so much debris. Look at this. That's all from inside the intake manifold. And the same thing inside these ports here. I can actually reach my finger in and pull all this out. And then I realized exactly what it was. They were running this tractor without an air filter on it for, you should never do that, but for a long time. And you could tell, I mean, everything is coated. That's why the valves aren't seating. So I'm gonna lap the valves. I'm gonna take this head off. I got a Dremel with wire brushes and everything. I'm going to clean everything. I'm gonna put it through the parts washer, and I'm just gonna clean the heck out of it. And hopefully we can get the valve seating and get it up and running. Because other than that, from everything I've seen, looks pretty good. Another nice thing about this is the water pump. Actually, even though it comes up to the head here, it's not part of the head. So you have your thermostat housing, but all this comes off. So you don't have to take off the water pump. You don't have to take off the thermostat housing. You don't even have to take off the exhaust manifold if you don't want to. All you have to really do is disconnect the injectors, take the valve cover off, unbolt all this, take the rockers off, and just pop everything off. And you can clean it out. But so, I mean, that's the plan as of now. I'll pull it back off. Hopefully I'll get some time tonight. I'm at work right now. I work overnight. If it's not busy tonight, I'll have that head off, have it cleaned up, and hopefully we get her up and running. Absolute worst case scenario, rebuild kits for these engines are, I think, about $700. That's everything: valves, pistons, valve seats, wrist pins, brand new cylinder liners, or I'm sorry, sleeves, and also that's worst case scenario. But it didn't look too bad on the inside. Everything looks like it's firing okay, or it will fire okay from the pattern and all in the injectors. So it looks pretty good. So we're gonna clean it up, give it its compression back, and we'll see how that turns out. Hopefully it'll be a runner soon.